Morning guys, Cliff here. Guess what? Did you see that? Go a bit slower. Today I'm going to start the Henson's Liberty Raider build. It's tissue covered, designed for free flight and rubber power. I'm going to RC it with a little electric setup and we'll see how we get on. I've just opened the box of parts and I'll tilt you down, you can have a look. And I've got as far as looking at the balsa wood. It all looks very nice indeed. Beautifully laser cut, as you can see, look at that. The first thing to start on this build is the fuselage size. Now on the Henson's website they have got a detailed video on how to put it together, so I'm not going to do the detailed video on how to put it together, but what I'll do, I'll come back to you in major stages and you can see what I'm doing. Okay, here's a major step. This is basically up to steps 1, 2 and 3. Actually steps 1 and 2. Pretty straightforward up to now. Okay, so I've completed part 3, step 3 and step 4. Step 3 was to fit this one here in the back and the rear of the cockpit slopey, and step 4 was the radiator underneath. Because the parts are not designed to butt up, I like them to butt them up and rounded, so I've added a little bit of 1/8 just cut from the sheet they came from, bit of 1/8 approximately each side, which allowed me to angle the bottom to get it in so as I can get a nice rounded finish. Okay, next update. I've had to do things a little bit different order than what they've suggested, because I want to cover the fin and tail plane before I fit it, and part of the construction is gluing on this part, but I've had to glue that into the fuselage to enable me to put the stringers on, so then that will go in there after the event, something like that. Sticks out a bit at the back of the, like that. What I've done on the front, so this bit's normally glued in, I've made the whole top lift out so it's gained me access to the radio equipment. So I've added a couple of little strips along the top and along the bottom, a couple of mils along the bottom and a millimetre or so in the top, just to allow me to round it up and give it a lot more strength. So that just goes in there like that. I've also stuck on the cowl and started to sand the shape around a little bit. A little tip for you is probably better to glue it all together and sand it while you can get easily to the bottom part. Schoolboy error really, I haven't, so I'll have to gently, carefully file that away. So there it is anyway, she's coming on nicely. Now this part's in, I can glue the stringers down, and also there's some little parts to go on the side to round it up if you want to, which I do. I like the rounded shape, so I should be rounding it up. And also some little parts just to put on the front here to fit round off the back edge, because I rather like the big machine gun in the top, so I want to fit that. But yeah, the parts on the side of these here, we go, I'm not sure which way round, possibly that way. We glue on there like that, round it all up, which is rather lovely. Yeah, just like that in fact. So I'm going to do these little extra bits and I'll come back to you shortly. I've just added these stringers to the back and the shapes to the side, and this one on the side there is the exhaust manifold one, which you stick that back on after you've tissued it. So yeah, it's looking lovely and chunky now, isn't it? I'm just working on the tail feathers of the Liberty Raider. I've tidied up the back end of the stringer area a little bit, and it'll make it better to tissue cover, but I'm just working on the tail feathers, and do you know what, it takes as long to work on something as small as this as it does on a large scale. Funny, isn't it? But so far I've done, because I'm hinging, so I'll put some little extra bits of balsa wood in just to obviously for the hinge areas, I might have just 2 on this. Probably will, just 2 each side actually. That was one thing I didn't say. This tail wheel is going to break off obviously, so I've just drilled a small hole and put a piece of I suppose it's probably 1/2 mil or something carbon rod right down into it, so now it's not going to go anywhere. I'll fill in one of these holes to take the horn like I did on the rudder. Something I like to do is just to strengthen the whole structure with CA. Let's turn that around. So just blob it on a little bit, get a piece of balsa, just wipe it over, spread it about. Hold it away from your face as it cures because of the fumes. Right, and the best way to sand it, I'll show you. Don't try and sand it like that. Just get your sanding block and just move the piece up and down a couple of times. That's all it takes. And it's nice and smooth then. The hinge material is the same as I'm putting on that came with the U-Ho. It's a piece of fishing line, and you see it in there. It's about 1/2 mil. You think it's really not man enough to do the job, but it is. And the way you do that, don't worry about drilling holes. You just push a pin through where it's going to go. Let's say I've got to put a joiner in yet, of course, for the elevators holes. So the joiner might dictate where I put the inner holes, but the outer holes are going to go up here. So just gauge it halfway. I'm in there at the end, about a centimetre. Just gauge it and just give it a little push. You can drill it if you want. I've got some small drill bits, but to be honest, this is by far the most accurate way. There we go. That's gone in quite a long way, probably 1/4 inch. Same with the other end. So now they're ready to cover as well. All I've got to do is make the holes. I've eased out the front of the tailplane just enough to get it to sit around the fuselage side. I'm making sure the trailing edge of the tailplane is flush with the back of the fuselage. And because there's a bevel in this has to go up a certain way. It's got to go up in like that and swing around like that. And that holds itself all in. That bit sticks out the back like that. That's how it's designed. And then the elevators will go in there like that and move up and down. And then the rudder will obviously go on the outside of that. The other thing I was thinking about was the wings. I've made the wings up. They show you to put the main spar in after you've glued the wing to the fuselage. Now the wing just sits. In fact, I'll tell you what else I'll show you I'm going to do. This, as you can see, is just got no strength to it. There's no point in gluing it to that. So I'm going to inset a piece of wood into that and make it flush. Then when I glue the wing to the fuselage, I'll have a bigger contact area. The inside, these 2 main spars sit into the wing like that, so you glue those there, and then when you put the main spar on the top, that comes down and it glues over the top of this rear one. Okay, so there was a thin piece of wood across here, leaving a small channel which I've removed, but on second thoughts now I've taken this bit off here and here on this one, and the wing supports I've trimmed so it fits like that, nice and flush to the rib. I've put a little bit of false wing rib attached to the fuselage. The reason I've done that is because when I glue this on, that would go in there like that and glue on. I'm going to tissue the wing down to this rib, This will allow me to put plenty of glue on around the main spar attachments along the fuselage and wing and fuselage join. And then when it's glued on, I shall tissue this section here. And then when that's glued on, I've made a little brace here, a little cup, and a notch out the fuselage side there. And that will go in there like that as a wing brace, and I'll cut that off obviously. So I've got these rather nice, neat, sort of solid wing struts. They're only coffee stirrers, but they're a nice bit of hardwood, should do the job lovely. And I'll tissue them up. They'll look quite smart, I think. Just made a simple hatch, a hatch catch, whereas there's a tiny little dowel at the front and the magnet at the back, which matches that magnet back, and a little hole in the front. Put in the floor for the radio equipment. I've got a small piece of ply, I'm going to, light ply of course, I'm going to put in there, and that'll screw onto there and just poke out the front. I've made the hole in the front a little bit bigger to accommodate the outer casing of the motor. So I'm going to start tissue covering, and I've got a choice of tissue. I've got what comes with the kit, which is a rather vibrant blue and yellow. The box shows a blue fuselage with yellow wings, which is quite a nice colour scheme. So I'll go with the same thing, and I'm going to start with the wings. Like all things tissue, I need to put a nice sharp blade in, and I shall cover lengthwise, because the grain probably goes lengthwise. Don't know what the tissue is going to be like, we'll find out in a minute. I shall cover the bottom of the wing first. Cover the bottom of the wing first, and then the top, only up to there. So I'll cover this middle section last once I've glued the wing on. And I might make the wingtip a separate piece as well, because it avoids any wrinkles you can't get rid of. Okay, there we are. So I've got videos on tissue covering, my Focke-Wulf video, the Cessna 170 video, and the Spitfire video. So I'm not going to cover tissue covering on this, I'm just going to crack on with it. I've covered the flying surfaces, the rudder and fin is the rudder. Just stuck blue tissue on it to jolly it up, bit of white and then some blue stripes. The tailplane and elevators are covered, and the top hatch is covered. I've decided not to open up the little round holes. I've certainly opened up the top holes for ventilation, and I've also just installed the motor. I don't know what it is, it's just one in my drawer. It's about 15 millimeters diameter, about 5 or 6 millimeters deep. It's an outrunner, and I've got separate ESC in there, and I've painted the interior of the cockpit black. So next job is to, I've tissued the wings. Just quickly show you one of those, and put a piece of bolster in for the strut. I've tissued some struts as well, so they're ready to go on. Once they're on and glued in, then I'll tissue the end section against this spare rib. Well, it's not a spare rib, a rib I cut out of spare wood. Not sure if I'm going to use the decals or not, we'll see. Small amount of progress. I've tissued this side and the bottom. I'm still toying with the idea of an undercarriage of some sort. The reason I'm not using the Henson's one is it's just attached to wing. It's a very flimsy affair, great for a static model but not so good for a heavier radar control model. So on the strength of that, I've just glued a small piece of ply there. Don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but the option's there. Obviously it's not doped yet. This area I'm leaving clear until I've fitted the fin and rudder and tailplane, and then I can tissue that in. I did cover it in one piece. It didn't go too badly, a little wrinkle here and there, but hey. Now I'm going to do this side. When you're building a model, converting it like this, you can't just go rushing ahead. You have to think of what order you do things in.
So this is just a mock-up. It's not glued in place yet, but you can see how the extra wing rib I've stuck to the fuselage side, well, in 3 pieces, fit. So now the wing just slots in there. I can glue it all in, and then I can tissue the gap between that wing rib and the main wing and end up with a nice clean wing. Tissued it.
Now isn't that a sight to gladden the eyes? Freshly doped wings, tail, fin, hatch, rudder and fuselage. Doesn't come out too badly actually. Nearly ready for assembly. Just got to paint the cowl, which I think I might do before I start to assemble. So the wings are glued on, the tail surfaces are hinged, working very nicely. So as soon as that glue sets, I can tissue in the inboard panel, stick on the exhaust pipe, but before I do that, actually as a point, I'm going to put the struts on. I might have to trim the exhaust pipe down. Hey guys, I think we're in business. Woohoo! Alright. The dihedral looks quite high, so I'm hoping there's enough there to turn the model. That's looking really nice. The next job is to fix the wing struts on. I've tissued the inner panels here, got to dope those. Now the control surfaces are working well, I can tissue this panel in here. The push rods, by the way, are 0.8mm carbon rod with a bit of heat shrink tube at each end for the fittings, just to allow for a bit of adjustment. Still thinking about an undercarriage. So struts. The wing struts are, that's the port wing strut. Just to remind you, the wing struts are just these coffee stirring sticks, so they didn't come from the kit, but I think I've made them to fit quite nicely into these holes here. A little bit of bolster I put in the wing. I'll dope that underneath. I did have the exhaust stack on earlier on, but I've knocked it off again in mucking around with the servos, so that's got a glue back on there, and in there. Okay, just let that set a minute, and I'm going to get some blue tissue out and get that back bit sorted out. So I've made up a simple undercarriage. If you remember, I stuck a ply plate on the bottom. It's a bit crude, don't look too close. And I've bent up a one-piece undercarriage, joined the 2 bits under a bit of brass tube and flattened it, and that'll help it to hold in place. Bit of lolly stick in the middle, and I'm just going to stick a piece of ply right over the top. I put a couple of balsa wood fairings in, and so I'm just going to stick a bit of ply over the top. I wanted it to come further out from the fuselage because I wanted it to look like the undercarriage was mounted on the wing more, but it sits quite nicely, so quite pleased with that. So I'm just going to paint it all up before I glue it in place while I can get some paint onto the metal bars. The bottom plate's drying. You can see the gap between the undercarriage and the wing now. We'll give it a little bit of bounce in. Ooh. You see the down thrust and side thrust I put in there. The Henson's Liberty Raider is just about finished. Let me show you what I've done. I've added these top struts for a bit more extra strength because it's rear control and I've got a bit more weight in it, and I wasn't entirely happy with the dihedral brace to take the extra weight. So top struts, they look kind of pretty good. I've also added an undercarriage. The original undercarriage is more for display than anything else, but as you can see from the earlier shot I did, the little bars are contained within the plywood sandwich, really. So excuse me, so there's a little bit of bounce in them, because they don't actually touch the wing. Little balsa bits in between and tissued around. The wheels are on, and she's all fired up, ready to go. I'll put another little change is the little windshield. I'll put a little windshield on, not the balsa one. I think it's quite sweet. The machine gun is my hatch handle. Let's just fire her up for you. It's 1S. I might have to put just a little bit of nose weight in just to balance it, you know. Little down at the front, snap at the back. So I've got rudder elevator, and of course throttle. Oh, the battery needs charging. Never mind, you can see the propeller spinning. Okay, if I throttle it up, it goes, battery's flat, but never mind, you get the idea. Oh, I put a little false dashboard on it as well. Bit of fun. Servos move in, look like this. As you can see, there's bags of room in the front. You could go 2S with a higher amp ESC. And that's about it really. The thing about this model is, let me look at you. The thing with this model is the different options you can make with it. You can put the side strips on, you can add extra balsa bits all over it really, depending on, you don't have to have the cowl on the front. There's a few options you can do with this kit. Obviously if you made it slab sided and the squarer nose, it'd be a lot easier to tissue, but I quite like the rounded appearance of it. This strut incidentally was quite close to the exhaust manifold, which I've snapped twice, so I put a piece of carbon underneath that to support it won't snap again. I've also put a small piece of carbon up through the tail wheel into the fuselage to stop that getting snapped off. I don't know what weight it is. It'll fly fast, I'm sure. The unknown bit, of course, is the will it fly without ailerons? I've got rudder. I might try and increase the rudder flow slightly more. I've got slightly more left than right. So we'll have to see. Hopefully, touch wood, that's enough. Obviously I've got more drag with the undercarriage. I could have gone without the undercarriage, but I haven't. So I'll put a link to Henson's website down below. This is the very simple build video, and it's not a blow by blow, it's just a major points assembly. And I'll also put a link to the fly-in maiden flight video as and when I've done it. So thanks for watching guys. Check out Henson's website. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.